Welcome to episode 92 of Enhancing Human Experience podcast. On today's episode, it's all about the magic of being yourself. Now, if you listen to the podcast much, you know that I spend a lot of time talking about being because it is my favorite subject, and I really do believe that it's the one thing that when we change it, when we change our state of being, when we change who we are, our self-concept, everything else changes as a result of that. I mean, I think human beings, myself included, we're always looking for that simplest action to take, that simplest thing to do that will change everything else. Because the mind, this monkey mind we have of ours, which is really awesome in one sense, helps us get through life, helps us solve problems, helps us create solutions, can also be detriment because it has a tendency to make things more complex than they need to be. And so one of the things that I like to do and that we do on the podcast is we make things really simple, because simplicity, what did Bruce Lee say? You know, he said that simplicity is brilliance, something to the effect that it's brilliant when you find a solution that is super simple. And that's what we're always wanting to do, and not fall into that trap of making things more complex. I got to tell you, I don't know what industry you're in or what type of work that you do, but coming from the design industry and coming from like a technical type of industry, I definitely sensed products becoming more complex. And I guess I would say unnecessarily complex. I'm all for innovation and inventing awesome design and blending form and function. I'm all for that. But when you intuitively have a sense that things are getting more complex just for the sake of complexity, then you got a problem. And it's kind of like you've got to step back and say, look, what are we really doing here? And are we making a beneficial product? Are we solving the product in the solution or the problem in the best way? Or are we just making things more complex because we can do it? I think it's a fine line, and it's like a deep chasm that we could fall into in any industry, in any part of the human experience if we don't be careful. And so it's all about that simplicity. But the thing of it is, when we talk about state of being, one of the things that came up this past week, and it dawned on me, and this is an idea that has dawned on me in the past, and I'm sure you've thought of this as well. Lots of people talk about it. It's the notion that being your authentic self, being more like yourself, and going on that journey is really super important, as opposed to trying to develop yourself and become a person that is, effective and successful in the world, but neglecting to tune in and know yourself so that you can become more like yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? This is something that oftentimes, we can become so focused on becoming a better person and on becoming more successful and becoming more of the things that are going to attract the experiences we want in life, that we can kind of neglect being more like ourselves. And I'm just as guilty of this, even though all these products and tools in Just Be It, the secret to having what you want in life, are about developing a more successful you, right? A more focused you, a more driven you, a more tenacious, more committed, all of these things that we need to be. I think it's important from time to time, and why I wanted to spend an episode of the podcast talking about this, that there's another something that you need to be in order to have that massive success, and that is more like yourself. Most of the time, and from some people can go through their whole life, right? Most of the time we're not focused on that because we're taught to focus outward and to look, and to compete with other people and to look into the world and maybe see what the world needs and then bring that to the world. For the most part, we're not taught to look inside and ask what wants to come through and what our true authentic state of being or our true authentic self really is. But all the successful people in some way, shape, or form have all said that their success can be totally attributed to the fact that they tuned into who they really were and they expressed their authentic self. They weren't trying to create a best-selling album. They weren't trying to create a work of art or a work of architecture or create a business out of something that is only in the world, like only looking without. They tuned in within, they got in touch, and they got really close to themselves and developed that relationship with themselves and allowed what wanted to come through them. That's what most successful people say. All successful people, right? Whenever we're trying to do something that we think the world needs or that we think other people need, there's a high probability that we might be wrong. But when we tune into what wants to come through us, there's a low probability that we might be wrong because, again, we're aligning with our true authentic self. And I mean the self that is higher. It's higher knowing. It knows more than us. It has a better perspective of the world at large, what the world needs, because there's this higher intelligence. We use the mind to facilitate that, right? And to figure out, okay, well, I've got this inspiration that wants to come through me, this idea or concept or business or piece of art or something that wants to come through me. Then we use the mind to figure out how we can do that in the best way, right? When we're bridging that gap, we're using our intuition and our intellectual ability to make that happen. But I think it's important from time to time, and this is something that I try to do often in my own life, is look within and really tune back in, because we can become on a path that keeps us outwardly focused and puts us in a competitive mode, which is a really, really crappy place to be. We want to always be more in the creative mode where we have no competition, because no one can compete with us when we're truly aligned with our authentic self. There's no one that can do it. This is the whole notion behind branding, right? Branding is the art of differentiation. And if you go out into the marketplace and you try to create a brand based on what you think people want and what you think they're going to resonate with, it's going to suck. It's going to be the hardest thing in the world, because you cannot take into effect every single person's idea and concept. I mean, yeah, you could get your target market and try to define your target individual, your one person that is your ideal customer. But I've got to tell you something. If that ideal customer is not you, that's going to be really freaking hard. Really, really hard, because you're going to have to know everything about that target market. You're going to have to put yourself in their shoes. This is why when you're creating a product or business, an easy and effective, and I might say the best course of action in my own humble opinion, is to self-identify as your ideal customer or ideal client. Lots of people have talked about this, that if you don't know your own perspective and what you need and what you want, the products and services that you want to use, you got to do a whole bunch more research, right? This is the notion, and I think about this quite often as I'm creating the products and services that I feel need to be in the world, that I want to use, right? These tools and processes and ideas and concepts built into digital products or physical products. I want the products that are going to solve my problem, because ultimately, I don't know your problem in the way that you know it. I don't know it to the depths that you know it, and so I can't really solve it in the best way. I can solve my problems in the best way by creating the products and services that I want in my life to help me get more of what I want, right? And in doing that, there's a high probability that they will help you get more of what you want as well, right? Because we are human beings and we do have a lot of commonalities, right? But I think we can get really off track if we don't self-identify and if we don't tune into what we really need in the world and what we want to really see. And that only comes from being our authentic selves and staying in alignment. So when I say this podcast episode is about the magic of being yourself, I definitely mean the magic to help your business thrive, but also to help your life thrive, right? Your experience, your relationships, all those things. Being yourself is the magic key that unlocks everything that we want in life. And not being our authentic self is a hard road to hoe and probably won't get us anything that we want. And it will really suck to do it, right? Because we're always going to be focused outward, trying to conform, trying to be a certain way or be this or that. When if we nurture that relationship with ourself, that's the simplicity of doing that, right? We only have to focus on one thing. What's going on inside of us, what wants to come through us, how we want to feel in alignment so that we can act in the exact right way, say the right thing at the right time, be in total flow, be in total harmony with ourselves. Then life gets really good, and it's not complex. There's no list of 20 things you've got to remember. It's just simple. It's one thing. What wants to come through? How can I be more aligned with myself? A couple weeks ago, which was really the seed that started this podcast, that really kind of got me thinking about this again. Like I said, I've heard people talk about this a lot, and I'm sure you have too, this notion of being your authentic self. Oprah has a great quote about it where she said that her whole business radically transformed into what it is today. And the money and the success and the joy all came when she started being her authentic self. But a few weeks ago, I was thumbing through Tim Ferriss's Instagram feed, and he had a quote on there from this guy named Felonious Monk. And I'm going to share that quote with you right here as I grab my phone and pull it up. But it's a really great quote, and I've got another one that I found here from him as well. I guess this guy was a jazz player, musician. And he said, "A genius is the one most like himself." This guy named Felonious Monk said that. And that's awesome, because you don't hear a lot of that in the world, right? Don't hear a lot of it. This is the same message that Earl Nightingale was talking about in his Strangest Secret as well, when he said that as you're creating a product or service, that there's a high tendency to conform. Well, just living the human experience, just being a human being, right? There's a high tendency to conform, but that's the big trap, right? When you go along with the herd, when you go along with be a conformist, that's when you are competing with every other person who's being a conformist. And when you stop and be that contrarian person and break that conformity, that cycle of conformity, that's when things start to get really good. That's when you stand out and you really differentiate yourself in business and in life. You're a unique person, and you hold that position. If you look at it in a marketing and a branding standpoint, you occupy that category or that position 100% solely because no one can be you, right? If you're focused on being the best you can be, the most authentic you can be, like this Felonious Monk said, then you got that category all wrapped up. No one can take it away from you. There's no competition. And then your only job in life is to be more and more like you as you go through the years. And stay tuned in to what wants to come through you, what ideas are going to come through you as you're tuning into who you really are, and making everything that you think, say, do, and create in the world the most expression of you, the best expression of you in business and in life. And then it's become super easy as well, right? Because I think about this as I'm creating, products that I want to see in the world, specifically as I'm developing Focus and Flow, the product and apparel company with inspirational messages and metaphysical ideas that help you get more of what you want in life, right? As I think about this, it's like, how can I make this company a natural expression of me? Because again, if I try to make it something different, it's going to be really struggle, right? If I try to build a company that I'm not the number one customer for, that I'm not the target customer for, it's going to be a real struggle. So I'm always asking that question, what do I need? What products and services do I want to have in my experience and in my world? What clothing do I want to wear? What messages do I want to have on that clothing that will help me get more of what I want? And in doing that, there's a very high probability that it will help you get more of what you want as well. Because now I've anchored myself as being that person that is my best customer solving my problems, and there's a big probability that it's going to solve a lot of your problems too. Because at the end of the day, it's the whole idea around that company is helping people get what they want in life. Products and apparel for conscious creators, helping you bring your creative power into the world in a way and show up in the world in a way that attracts the things and experiences you want to have in life. That's how I'm doing it in my own life. And that's why I wanted to take this episode of the podcast and share this idea with you so that you can start applying those things more in your life. I'm sure you already do. I know, again, this is nothing new, this idea of being our authentic self, but because of the nature of the mind being outwardly focused, I think we need to remind ourselves of this from time to time, really often, and stay in that alignment, not compete with other people. Don't try to be something that we're not, because then you know exactly what to say and do at exactly the right time, right? Life really sucks. And believe me, I have played this game where you're constantly trying to figure out what you should say to get what you want, what you should do, what you should create, what you think the world needs. That's a sucky situation to be in. I definitely speak from experience. It's not like not all the products and things and little inventions that I've made throughout my life have been like that, but they've been partially like that, right? I definitely try to tune in and act on ideas that come through me as opposed to going out in the world and trying to figure out what the world needs, because that's a crazy scenario in and of itself, right? That's not what Steve Jobs did, right? Steve Jobs didn't go out and ask people what they want. He made something super awesome and said, here's the iPod or here's the iPhone. A lot of people like that have done that exact same thing. They make something super awesome that they want, that they think is an awesome invention. And guess what? People resonate with that. People will find that as well. I want to share this other quote with you from Felonious Monk, and it's really good as well. He said, I say, play your own way. Don't play what the public wants. You play what you want and let the public pick up on what you're doing, even if it does take them 15 or 20 years. I love that. That's a bold statement though, right? I personally don't want it to take 15 to 20 years, and I'm sure you don't either. But I got to say, what he's saying here makes a lot of sense, because it's going to take time for your message or what you're doing to get to resonate with people, to become into their consciousness, right? I don't know of any business on the planet that doesn't tell a person starting, I mean mainly like a sales business or like a, insurance, real estate, advertising, whatever type of business where you're doing a service business. Definitely when you have to sell people, like marketing business, etc. I don't know any business like that doesn't say, hey, it's going to be 3 to 5 years before you start to get some success. That's just the way that it is, right? Now, again, I don't want to create a self-limiting belief and put that out there. We always want to try to get there faster. But the reality of it is we're dealing with collective consciousness that is focused on what is already here. You show up in a new business trying to push that business's message and idea into the world, you're going to have resistance, right? Because everyone in the world is already focused on what already is. Now, your job is to get there faster by telling your message in a better way than your competitors, more often, in a way that resonates with people in a better way. Those kind of things, I think, can accelerate that. And of course, working on the inner belief system and, using all the tools that are within us and allowing that creative force that flows through us to actually feed that seed better all the time. Then we can speed that process up. But anything that comes into the world, whether it's a business or a baby or an invention, whatever, it's going to meet resistance initially. And how long that resistance is just depends on how much energy you're going to put into that thing and how long you can stick with it until it actually takes a hold in the world and starts to grow in the physical world. All of the things that we see around us began as an idea. And so it's just how much energy can you put into your idea until it takes a foothold and people start to say, hey, maybe this can help me and maybe I should go look at this, that kind of stuff. So his quote there, that second quote, is really, really good. It takes commitment and it takes courage to do that, doesn't it? You and I both know that. But again, so that's the message of this episode of the podcast, the magic of being yourself. And I definitely had to record this episode because I talk a lot about developing the qualities, characteristics, and attributes, and even the person that we want to become, right? Because even though there's a self inside of us and a higher part of ourself, an inner knowing, spiritual being, inner being, that kind of thing, we still have the consciousness, we have the free will to choose how we're going to be. So it's not only looking within, it's both, right? It's making a conscious decision of who you want to be in the world and not just conforming or not just allowing your conditioned state of being to be your dominant state of being. And then you're going to create the same day over and over again. That's where I think life gets really interesting. It's both, right? You're a conscious creator. You get to choose what you're going to be, but don't discount what you already are and the momentum and the ideas and concepts that you've already built up. Now, whether you believe that came from past life or whatever, but when you marry those two and build upon what you've already done, all of that momentum that's already coming through you, this is your personality, this is what you're good at, your natural talents, right? The things that you love and enjoy. When you build on that and then expand, you can kind of see this linear process. And to me, it's like, we've done a lot of work before we came into this physical form, right? Someone did the work. It had to be either us or some other entity because we come in very different. I love talking with parents. I'm not a parent myself, but I love talking with them, and they're saying, hey, the child that I had here is completely different than this child here. And if they have multiple kids, they can see all these different ranges. And that is evidence in and of itself that there's something going on before we come into this physical body. There is definitely something going on. And when we build on that, then we get we can go further faster, right? Why scrap everything that you've done up until this point when you came into this physical form and start from a clean slate when you can build on what's already been going and probably has been built in a better way and for a purpose that you might not even understand yet? I know that looking at my own state of being and my own inner wisdom, inner soul, whatever you want to call it, I don't fully understand it. I'm constantly trying to dial it in and stay tuned in and listen to that intuition, and I think what wants to come through and how I should express this and how I should do this. And sometimes I get it wrong. Back to the focus and flow. I mean, there were 3 or 4 different business ideas or different branding ideas or platforms that I wanted to create there until I finally locked in and felt really, really good about where I'm at now with that company. But it had to go through a number of trial and errors as I was trying to tune in with what felt the most like me, what felt the best to me, what platform or what company name and brand type thing felt the best to me. And it was a combination of what do I want it to be? How do I want it to feel? But also what wants to come through me? And when I married those two up, boom, that's when it happened. And you've probably had that own experience in your own life. Again, it's playing that inner and outer game. We don't only want to just focus on what's inside because that doesn't leave us to choose anything right now in this physical experience. That just means we're like a servant to what's already been done. And that's no fun either because we're always taking in new information and choosing, well, I want this and I don't want that. And so we have to account for the fact that we're having experiences right now that are constantly shaping the things and experiences we want to have. And so if we don't put that into the hopper, along with all of this past experiential beingness that we have, then we lose out on a large part of the fun because where we're going right now in this present moment, we're pushing into all the new territory, right? And we're always gathering this idea and constantly fine-tuning where we're going and how we're expressing ourselves, the things and experiences that we want, the things we're creating, all of those things are kind of going in. When you really look at it, it's a fascinating phenomenon, this human experience, because we've got all this stuff going on and we're moving forward, plowing through, I guess you could call it like this, like ether. I don't know what you think of it as, but we're plowing through and we're creating and like making these choices, but also trying to stay tuned in with our inner being, our soul, our deep wisdom inside of us, our higher selves, that intuition. I think that's the phenomenal game here that we're playing, like this great cosmic game. And that's when it gets really awesome. So I hope that that's been beneficial to you. And I hope that as you continue on your journey, that you will think of that often. Maybe put a little note in your purse or wallet that maybe put Felonious Monk's quote there, right? The genius is the man or woman that is most like themselves, right? And trying to think of that constantly. I know it helps me a lot on my own journey as I'm bringing things into the world and expressing things. And I have a feeling that it'll help you because you're a human being as well, right? And you have your own unique inner knowing and inner wisdom inside of you. And I think, just want to talk about this before we wrap up the podcast. I think that a lot of the unfortunate experiences, and what I mean by that is when we feel crappy, when we feel anxious or worried or doubtful, I think a lot of that comes from we've detached too much from our authentic self and from our inner being. When we reattach and when we make our inner being or our higher self our partner in the creative process, that's when I think life gets really fun. And it's just one of those things. We just have to think about it often. And then we start to lose a lot of that anxiety and a lot of that worry because there's a reassurance there, isn't it? You've now got someone on your side, and you've got someone on your side that has a better perspective than you, has a deeper wisdom than you, is more connected to all of the infinite wisdom in the whole galaxy and universe than you. Who better to have on your side than that? That's your partner right there. When we do that, it can alleviate a lot of that anxiety and worry. I know that in my own experience, when I feel the worst or when I have felt the worst in the past, if I look back from the perspective that I have now, it's when I have felt most disconnected from that divinity within me, whether you want to call it God or infinite intelligence. When I feel like I'm doing it all on my own, that's when it sucks. Maybe you can relate. That's when life really sucks. When I remind myself that I'm an infinite being and I'm an infinite spiritual being having a human experience, that's when life gets awesome because it takes all the pressure off. You've now got a rock to lean on and a partner there that will never leave you, that always wants to help you, that loves you, all these things that we want in life. Then that's when all those good things start going on inside of you. That's when you're going to notice a lot of changes in the way people treat you, in the experiences that you're having in life. But it only comes from developing up that relationship and reconnecting. All of the yogis say that, hey, you're a divine being. I mean, all spiritual people say this, but your whole purpose in life is to reconnect with your divinity. And when you do that, all the good things in life are going to happen. So that's what our purpose on life in the world is as a human being. So I hope that's been helpful. And before I close, I just want to ask you, how is your Christmas shopping going? Have you got all the things on your list? If not, why not head over to Focus and Flow USA and pick up some of the things that the people on your list are going to use and love and enjoy for years and years. Because it's not just products and apparel, it's products and apparel for conscious creators. It's going to help the people on your list create the experiences they want to have in life. How's it going to do that? Well, it's going to help them by reminding them that they're an infinite creative spiritual being. They're a spiritual being having a human experience. They have the God force flowing through them. They have the ability to focus their creative power on the things and experiences they want and bring those experiences and things into their reality, right? This is what we do as human beings. Focus and Flow is all about helping people get what they want in life by reminding them that they're a creative being. So there's a whole bunch of products and apparel there, and I'm working really hard, especially over the next week or so, to fill that store up with more alternative type products, more ideas on mugs and shirts and posters, so that you can have a variety to choose from, so you can get the right thing for the right person, and they'll be really, really happy to receive that for Christmas on Christmas Day from Santa, right? I mean, come on, who wouldn't want that, right? It's cool apparel that you definitely can use to help get what you want in life. It's a total win-win, and you'll be a winner too because you got it for them. And I'm trying to figure out how to work this through gift certificates. So if you don't want to pick out the thing for them, you can send them a gift certificate and they can pick it out themselves. So look for that to be coming down the road in some date in the future, but I'm definitely working on that. So head over to Focus and Flow USA, see what already is in the store, see if you can find something that you want to give to the people in your life on your list that'll help them get more of what they want in life. All right. Until next week, I really do appreciate you listening. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening to this episode all about the magic of being yourself. I think it's super important. And until next time, all the best, health, wealth, and success. Bye-bye.